This year at Wessex, we are going to be formalising our kit check process in ways that we've never done before. Part of the process we're putting in place is to manage the swords on the day and make sure that the appropriate swords are being used. And we're doing some research into the safety of swords, which is intended to understand whether certain models of sword are safe or are not safe, and help us set standards with a bit more of an evidence-based process in future. So what I'm going to do is give you a dry run of the whole process. I'll show you both measuring things and filling out the spreadsheet. And I'll do my best to explain the spreadsheet and tests as we go along. You'll be working in pairs with one person doing the measurements and the other person filling out the spreadsheet to record the information. Know that all the rows in the spreadsheet have a comment that describes them in more detail, so if you're not sure what to fill out, that's the first place to go to check to see more information. The kit check process will start by the fencer coming over to you and giving you their sword. You will ask them certain details, you ask their name, you ask the make, model and age of the sword, and if the point of the sword is covered by some additional tip, you'll ask them what's underneath, whether it's rolled, flared or rounded. Once you have this information from them, you can send them on to the head ref who will be checking their protective equipment, and then you should carry on checking the sword while that's happening. The first thing to do is measure the sword by placing it on the parcel scales. The recorder will have a clear view of the scales and can take the reading while the measurer gets set up for measuring the blade. 2 measurements are required for sword length. First of all, you need the top of the crossguard to the point of the blade, and then starting from wherever you ended that measurement, you go from crossguard to the end of the pommel. Both of the next measurements use the calipers and a visual inspection. We need 2 readings to measure the area of the tip. In both cases, we'll be taking the widest point 0.5 centimeter from the point of the sword. One reading should be parallel to the flat of the blade, the other one flips 90 degrees, so you're reading it parallel to the edge. Visually inspect the tip and record the material and shape, and if the tip is damaged in any way, if it's sharp or if a sword is poking through, it needs to be rejected and the tip must be replaced. Next, we're going to measure the thickness of the edges. You're going to use the calipers ruler to measure 10 centimeters back from the point, and then use the calipers themselves to measure the very edge, no more than 1 millimeter deep. Next is sword flex, so placing the scales on a flat surface, either the table or the floor. You will put the point of the sword onto the scales and then pull by the crossguard downwards onto the scales. Try to make the pressure of your pull as vertical as possible with no horizontal movement, and you're going to pull it until there's an obvious bend in the blade, and the force reading shouldn't be going up anymore at that point, although it will fluctuate by about 150 grams either way. To ensure an accurate read, you're going to do it 3 times, and then the spreadsheet will record the average. If any of your 3 measurements are more than 500 grams away from any of the other ones, then do it again until you get 3 readings within 500 grams of each other. The final test is a visual inspection of the blade for damage. Check you're looking for any sharp nicks. Do not run your hand along the blade like I do here. Visually inspect it and gently touch any nicks you see to see if they're sharp. Anything sharp will need to be filed down before the sword can be used, and record any other damage you see of the blade in the spreadsheet. If the sword has a shilt, you should inspect it, and if it is spiky, either reject the sword or flag it with the tournament manager. The last step is to accept the sword, reject it, or refer it to the tournament manager. The colours on the spreadsheet help you decide what to do. If everything is green, that means that everything is fine with the sword and you can just accept it. Yellows indicate warnings that should be inspected by the tournament manager, so if you have any yellows, you should bring the tournament manager over to assess it. Make sure you finish recording everything else about the sword before you bring them over so they can check everything at once. If there are any reds, the sword has failed kit check and you cannot accept it, although some reds might be fixable, such as changing the tip or filing out sharp edges, so give them an opportunity to do that if it is possible. So once the sword has either been rejected or accepted by you or the tournament manager, you've got one final thing to do, which is to mark the sword. If it's passed, you will take the coloured electrical tape that you've been given, wrap it around the base of the blade, and write the ID code at the top of the spreadsheet. This allows us to track the sword across the tournament, and if it is involved in an injury or if it breaks, we're able to understand which sword it was and use that to analyse sword safety in future. If it's rejected, mark it with black electrical tape to indicate that the sword has not passed kit check. That's a visual reminder for anybody that sees the sword later in the tournament. Thanks for watching, and thank you for everybody who's going to be helping out on the day doing the kit check. I will also be doing some training on the day, and the tournament managers will all be aware of the whole process. So if at any point you have any issues, either in the run-up to the day or on the day itself, please do ask us questions, and we are more than happy to help. We'll be using the data in collaboration with Historical Fencing Research, or the Safety Tips team, to understand sword safety better and help make sure that everybody keeps fencing safely.